Everyone thought the future of cars had already been decided. Electric, silent, battery-powered, while headlines circled around Tesla's newest updates and billion-dollar battery plans. Something quieter was happening in Japan. No flashy keynote, no dramatic countdown. Just a small, boxy petrol car rolling onto the streets in 2026, and somehow it made the entire EV world uncomfortable. At first glance, it didn't look revolutionary. It was tiny, almost cute, the kind of car you'd expect to see tucked into a narrow Tokyo alleyway. But that was the first misdirection. Because this wasn't just another compact city car, it was a statement. And the real question wasn't why Mitsubishi built it. The real question was, why now in the middle of the electric gold rush? To understand that decision, you have to step away from Silicon Valley and step into Japan. If you've ever walked through Tokyo, Osaka, or Kyoto, you'll notice something immediately. The roads aren't filled with massive SUVs. You won't see oversized trucks dominating intersections. Instead, you'll see compact, tall, almost toy-like vehicles moving efficiently through tight streets. These are K-cars, a category unique to Japan. Small engines, strict size regulations, tax benefits, lower insurance. But K-cars aren't small because Japan lacks innovation. They're small because Japan understands constraints. Space is limited. Parking is expensive. Daily commutes are short. In that environment, a giant vehicle isn't impressive, it's inconvenient. For decades, Japanese automakers mastered the art of doing more with less. More room inside, more efficiency, more practicality, all inside a box barely larger than a closet. And that's where this story starts to shift. Because while the rest of the world was racing toward bigger batteries and longer ranges, Mitsubishi looked at something else. Not hype, not headlines, just daily life. Here's what most EV discussions quietly avoid. Charging still isn't effortless everywhere. Infrastructure gaps exist. Battery replacement costs are real. Range anxiety hasn't magically disappeared just because marketing says it has. For urban commuters with predictable routines, EVs work beautifully. But for millions of people who need flexibility, sudden trips, rural drives, long distances without planning stops, the equation isn't perfect. Mitsubishi didn't ignore the electric future. They simply questioned whether it was the only future. And this is where the move gets uncomfortable. In 2026, instead of unveiling a bold new electric flagship, Mitsubishi introduced a petrol-powered K-car. Not outdated, not basic, but redesigned, hyper-efficient, packed with modern tech. Built with the same intelligence Japan has always applied to compact vehicles. On the outside, it looks simple. Boxy silhouette, tall stance, sliding doors, LED headlights. It feels approachable, friendly even. But once you step inside, the illusion fades. The cabin is surprisingly spacious. Seats fold flat to create cargo space that rivals larger crossovers. Storage compartments are everywhere. The dashboard integrates a smart infotainment system with voice control and driver assist features. Automatic emergency braking, lane alerts, a 360-degree camera designed specifically for tight urban navigation. It's not trying to out Tesla. It's trying to out-practical it, and that distinction matters more than it sounds, because somewhere between battery announcements and charging speed comparisons, the industry narrative quietly shifted from what people need to what looks futuristic. Mitsubishi reversed that direction. But this only matters once you see what happened next. The reaction wasn't loud. There were no viral stock crashes, no dramatic public statements. But analysts started asking a subtle question. What if the electric transition takes longer than expected? EV companies, especially Tesla, have built entire ecosystems around one assumption: that the world will move decisively and quickly toward full electrification. Charging networks, gigafactories, supply chains optimized for battery production. It's a massive commitment. Now imagine a scenario where a significant portion of consumers decide they're not ready to commit fully. Not because they reject EVs, but because they prefer options. That's the real disruption. Mitsubishi's petrol K-car doesn't deny the electric future. It introduces competition to it. It reminds buyers that convenience still has weight, that refueling in 5 minutes still has value. that long-term maintenance costs still influence decisions. And here's the twist. Japan has done this before. When the world pushed aggressively toward larger combustion engines decades ago, Japanese manufacturers refined efficiency. When others chased horsepower, they perfected hybrids. Toyota shocked the market with the Prius long before electrification became trendy. Honda quietly engineered some of the most reliable compact engines in history. Japan rarely moves first for attention. It moves first for durability. So is this car just for Japan? At first, it seems that way. K-cars are tailored to Japanese regulations, but urbanization is increasing everywhere. European cities are tightening road space. Parking costs are rising globally. Even American metropolitan areas are rethinking oversized vehicles. Small, efficient, affordable cars aren't a Japanese need anymore. They're becoming a global one. And this is where perspective shifts. The question was never, can this petrol car destroy Tesla? That's too simplistic. The better question is this. What happens if the future isn't singular? What if it's layered? Electric vehicles for predictable urban users, hybrids for transitional markets, efficient petrol engines for regions lacking infrastructure, different solutions for different realities. If that's true, then Mitsubishi didn't revive petrol. It repositioned it. And that's far more strategic than it first appears. Because disruption doesn't always arrive loudly. Sometimes it arrives quietly, shaped like a small boxy car navigating a narrow Tokyo street, reminding the world that progress isn't about choosing sides. It's about solving real problems. So now the uncomfortable question lingers. If practicality begins to outweigh trend, if consumers prioritize flexibility over ideology, if affordability re-enters the center of the conversation, was the electric era ever meant to be exclusive? Or did we just assume it would be? What makes this even more interesting is that Mitsubishi never positioned this car as a rebellion. They didn't market it as anti-TIV. They didn't frame it as a protest against Tesla. They simply built it and let the comparison happen naturally. And comparisons are powerful, because once people start comparing, they stop assuming. Think about the average buyer for a second. Not a tech enthusiast, not an investor. Just someone who needs a reliable car to get to work, pick up groceries, maybe take a weekend trip without planning, charging stops like a military operation. That buyer doesn't wake up thinking about global carbon strategies. They wake up thinking about convenience. And this is where the story gets uncomfortable for the EV narrative. Electric vehicles promise lower long-term running costs, fewer moving parts, clean energy potential. All valid, but the ownership experience still requires adaptation. Home charging setup, route planning, awareness of infrastructure gaps, acceptance of battery degradation over time for early adopters. That's exciting. For everyone else, it's friction. Mitsubishi's new K-car removes friction. Turn the key, fill the tank, drive anywhere. No learning curve. No lifestyle adjustment. It sounds simple, almost boring. But boring reliability has built empires before. And here's something else that doesn't get talked about enough. Psychological security. With petrol, the system is familiar. You understand it. You've grown up around it. You know that if something goes wrong, a mechanic nearby can fix it. Parts are available. The ecosystem is mature. With EVs, even if the technology is advanced, the ecosystem still feels new. That emotional layer matters more than most analysts admit. But this isn't just about emotion. It's about timing. Right now, EV adoption is accelerating but unevenly. Major cities thrive. Rural regions lag. Developing countries struggle with infrastructure. Even in advanced economies, public charging congestion is becoming a discussion point. If the transition stretches longer than projected, hybrids and efficient petrol vehicles don't disappear. They become bridges. And Mitsubishi may have quietly positioned itself as a bridge builder. Look at the design again, that tall, boxy silhouette isn't accidental. It maximizes interior volume within tight regulations. Sliding doors aren't flashy, they're practical in tight parking spaces. The efficient petrol engine isn't loud or aggressive. It's tuned for economy and durability. Every detail points to one philosophy: make life easier. Now zoom out. Tesla's strategy has always been bold. Accelerate the world's transition to sustainable energy. Build charging networks. Improve battery density. push software updates like smartphones. It's visionary, but visions require alignment from millions of individuals. Mitsubishi's strategy feels different. It doesn't try to accelerate the world. It adapts to it, and adaptation can outlast acceleration. This doesn't mean EVs are failing. Far from it. Electric vehicles are improving rapidly. Range is increasing. Charging speeds are getting faster. Costs are slowly declining. But here's the subtle shift. Competition is no longer EV versus EV.E, as ecosystem versus ecosystem. If you buy a Tesla, you're buying into a charging network, software ecosystem, and electric-only philosophy. If you buy this Mitsubishi, you're buying into decades of existing petrol infrastructure with modern safety and tech layered on top.